Thank you, Pam. That's next week. You have a sermon. It wasn't this week. We wouldn't do that to you. All right. Today's gospel, or the four gospels, contain 37 miracles. For the most part, all of us have been accustomed to or heard the 37 miracles. Now, just because there's 37 miracles, I would not assume that is the only 37 miracles that God performed, or Jesus performed. Now, in John chapter 21, the last verse tells us, Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have enough room for the books that would be written. So John tells us that he did perform many more miracles. Sometimes it's a memory thing of why things got recorded. I know that my childhood, I don't have as many memories as some folks do about their childhood. One thing I remember as a child is that I had a little tricycle called a big wheel. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a big wheel or not, but it has a big front wheel. It's plastic, it's red and yellow. It has a little emergency brake on the side. I would pedal that thing so fast down the driveway and pull that handle, and that thing would just spin round and round and round. And I would go make those tires flat like crazy. I'd go through many big wheels as a child. So that was one memory that I'll never forget. Another memory that I have is of a time with myself and my cousin. We were riding in the back seat traveling to Gasconade, Missouri, where my mother was from. And she always told us, boy, these hills just take my breath away. So my cousin and I looked at each other and we had this opportunity. We both gasped for air at the same time, just a big gasp. And my mother turned around frightened. She said, "What's wrong with you two?" And we said, "Mom, these hills, they just took our breath away." So now our parents and grandparents have shared stories with us, right? Growing up, we've heard many different things. Some of these things we remember very well, and others not so well. So if I was to ask you to write a book of what your grandparents told you, and maybe a relative to write that same book, that you guys have heard the same stories, maybe differences would be written. Some stories would stand out more than others. Maybe that's because the story touched you in a way that didn't touch the other person that's writing the book. Of these 37 miracles, this is the only one that is accounted for in all four Gospels. The feeding of the 5,000. Now I know that we work hard throughout the week. We come home and we want to just sit down and relax when we get home. We maybe envision the scene on our drive home where we can't wait to get to our recliner to sit down and relax and then just have dinner with someone that's there that prepared it for you. And then as you get home and settle into your recliner, all of a sudden the phone rings. And on the other end of that phone is someone telling you, "Guess what? We're in town. Prepare dinner. We're coming to your house to eat." There goes that nice and relaxing evening that you had planned. I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, but it's a shocker. Now, as we look at our text today, we see that Jesus and the disciples were looking to do exactly that. They had just got finished doing a lot of teaching, a lot of traveling, and they wanted to go and just relax. So they headed to an area where they thought they could do just that. The people seen them, so they ran after them. Some of them went around, they beat them to the location where they thought they were going to go. Most of us have busy lives. We can relate to that. And sometimes we get to a point that we just guard our free time so much that we miss opportunities to reach out to lost people. And today, from the feeding of the 5,000, we'll learn some lessons. These lessons may be the lessons and the reasons that this is included in all four Gospels. The first lesson that I came up with was that we're to open the door. Jesus had compassion for the people. How many of us would sit there and really be irritated that that phone call happened, that we had interrupted on our free time? Jesus, as we notice, was not irritated by these unwanted people. He did not see these people as a pain or an inconvenience. He seen this as an opportunity. He saw them as they were, sheep without shepherds. Jesus had compassion for all people, and he opened his heart to them. Jesus could have very easily told these people to go home. We're here to get some rest. We need rest, and we do not want to deal with you today. But he didn't. I wonder how the disciples felt. I don't know if anybody ever had a waiter or waitress position and closing time was 9 o'clock and somebody walked in at 1 minute till. That feeling of that waiter or waitress is, boss, just tell them they gotta go. We don't have time, we're out of food, something. But no, Jesus opened the doors. It's hard to tell what the disciples' thoughts were at that time. How many times do we let our own agenda get in the way of opening the door for others? Jesus opened the door for all people. Even the one he knew that would betray him opened the door for Judas. The second lesson is we have to set the table. Jesus desires us to be actively involved in his work. One of the interesting parts of this miracle, and one thing that gives this account a credibility, is the fact that the disciples did not come to Jesus expecting a miracle. They've seen Jesus perform many miracles. They could have come to him and said, Jesus, feed these people. Take care of this. But they didn't. Jesus sent them away, or Jesus noticed what they would ask, or knew that the disciples would do exactly this. Jesus did not send them away so they could go buy themselves food. In John's Gospel, when Jesus asked Philip at the beginning of the scene as to how they would feed the people, Philip also had no expectation of a miracle. When the disciples came to Jesus as it was getting late, they wanted the crowd to go home. They wanted to eat. One thing Jesus said to them, to the disciples, is, you give them something to eat. Once again, the disciples looked to what they had determined that was not enough, to the food that they had. It was not enough. Jesus very easily could have waved his hands and said, let there be food. Everyone would have ate. But he turned this around and he put this into the disciples' hands. He said, you feed them. Jesus was telling his disciples to set the table, and they were going to have a great number of guests. Jesus also invited the disciples to join in and help him to serve others. God does not expect the church to just sit back and wait for a few people to wander into the doors. He expects and invites us to join in the work of reaching and feeding the lost people. Do you think that after this day was done, that the disciples were glad they participated in this event? I believe so. We've been on many of youth mission trips that sometimes we look at the big picture and say, oh, we got all of this to do. But once we do it and we serve, we feel better about it. And I would imagine that's how the disciples felt that day. Very overwhelmed at first, but very thankful that they participated. When we pray to Jesus about the lost people in our community, Jesus is in heaven telling us, you give them something to eat. Jesus had the disciples take what he had made and feed the people. Jesus could have the people all come to him, but instead he invited his disciples to feed the people. One of the neat things about working for Jesus is that about the time you do not think you have enough to feed everyone, Jesus can come in and double your recipe. Next lesson. He can take little and make a lot out of it. Philip saw the situation as hopeless. There was no way that the disciples, with their own resources, could feed the people. In John's account, when Philip was taking stock of what they had, Andrew showed Jesus the food that he had found. And Andrew wondered out loud to Jesus, how were 5 loaves and 2 fish going to feed all these people? Jesus shows us he can take what little we have and multiply it to feed the thousands. The miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 shows us with God, small opportunities are a reality. I am amazed that God can take what little I have to offer him and turn it into something useful for the kingdom. I'm sure that at some point we have all felt that we did not have what we needed to feed the lost. We know the excuses. I do not know enough. Let the preacher do it. Jesus will take what we have and he will multiply it so that you can do what he has called you to do. The last lesson today is no one goes away hungry. Jesus will completely satisfy our needs. Verse 42 says, they all ate and were satisfied. This verse says that they all ate, and it includes the disciples. The disciples were satisfied because they ate and because they helped Jesus feed the people. When we serve Jesus, we will walk away satisfied and fulfilled. The people came to Jesus and they left satisfied. Jesus fed them. Verse 43 tells us that Jesus so amply supplied the needs that there were also leftovers. The leftovers were gathered up so they would not be wasted. Jesus will satisfy the emptiness you have inside that only can be filled by him. The feeding of the 5,000 left such an impression on the disciples that it was included in all 4 Gospels. If we were going to reach lost people, we need to open the door to them and set the table by working with Jesus. We need to realize that even though we do not have enough of our own, that Jesus will double the recipe so that we can feed those who come to us, and the people that we feed with the gospel will leave satisfied. The next time an unwanted dinner guest shows up in your life, what are you going to do? Are you going to feed them or send them away? People are hungry for Jesus, and the only way they will be fed is if we feed them. For most of us in this room, we have less than 100 years to live. During our time here on this earth, are we going to open the door, set the table, allow Jesus to double our recipe, and to be sure that